At the beginning of the movie, there is a narration that tells us about a distant mountain beyond the horizon, where a huge monster known as the Mountain King is sleeping. Then we see a kingdom, and the voice explains that there is something really important that can wake this giant. If Princess Kristen does not marry by her 18th birthday, well, let's just say things will not end well. Her father, King Eric, knows all about this curse and is super anxious to find a suitable husband for her, so he invites a Danish prince named Frederick to the palace. Kristen has a potential fiancé in mind, but she completely rejects the marriage proposal, which makes her father very angry. He tells her that she simply has to marry someone, whether she likes it or not. One morning, the king goes to check on her, believing she has not gotten out of bed yet, but in reality, she has run away, and we see her galloping through the forest. Then we met an ordinary peasant named Espen. He is leisurely strolling through the forest with food he grabbed from the village fair, when suddenly, Kristen's horse rushes by and knocks him over, causing him to fall into the water. Kristen soon returns to help him up. Then, Espen offers her food, and she devours everything, surprising him with how quickly she finishes all the vegetables and fruits. Kristen says it's because she was very hungry. After that, she says she has to go. Espen asks her name, but she just says maybe they will meet again. Later, when Espen gets home, he finds his two brothers, Per and Pal. Their father shows up shortly after and asks about the things Espen was supposed to buy at the fair, but all he has in his bag is a soggy potato. His father gets very angry, and his brothers are annoyed with Espen because he always gets the easiest tasks while they are stuck with the hard ones. Then their father tells his sons to take him hunting, since they have nothing to eat that day. Later, as night falls, Espen is looking at the fire when suddenly he feels the ground shaking. He thinks it might be trolls, so he grabs a metal bar and begins swinging it like a sword, pretending to fight a troll. But unfortunately, a piece of ember from the metal bar falls on the curtain, catching fire. He tries to put it out quickly, but the flames spread fast, and soon the whole house is ablaze. Meanwhile, the princess is still roaming around, sensing that something is not right. Suddenly, her horse bolts in fear, leaving her alone. She hears a terrifying roar coming through the trees and begins to run for her life. At one point, she stops and hides, but something enormous is approaching her. The next day, Espen's family returns from hunting and finds the house completely burned down due to the young man's stupid mistake. Everything is gone, even the painting of his deceased mother, which devastates his father. Shortly after, Prince Frederick and his guards appear. It turns out the entire kingdom is searching for the princess, and the king is offering half the kingdom and the princess herself to whoever finds her. Realizing this, Espen's father calls his sons to join him in the search for the princess. He tells Espen to join his brothers in this quest, as it is his only chance to make things right. He says this is the opportunity for them to rebuild the farm and their lives, then gives them his last penny before sending them off. Espen still accompanies his brothers in the search for the princess. During the journey, he finds a broken mirror and a helmet, deciding to take them, thinking they might be useful later, which definitely will be for his survival. However, his actions begin to irritate his brothers. Soon after, he hears an old woman asking for help and decides to lend a hand. While his brothers keep walking, he notices that this strange woman has her long nose stuck in a log, which leads him to find a sword, the only weapon capable of defeating the Mountain King. Next, a magical map reveals the path he needs to follow through the kingdom, and he does not realize he has passed by a huge footprint when he finds a clue about the princess. A servant informs the king that they have found a giant tooth, confirming the king's suspicion that the mountain monster has kidnapped the princess. The next day, the princess wakes up and finds herself trapped in the cave of the creature that captured her, but it is not around. Meanwhile, Espen also awakens and continues his journey to find her. His two brothers are ahead and find golden apples in a basket. Being very hungry, they eat them all. In a few moments, they start laughing like crazy, and suddenly some beautiful young women appear and invite them to their homes for more food. Espen arrives at the same place and sees his brothers in the distance, walking with people very different from those we saw before. He also finds a golden apple and begins to feel that he is under some kind of enchantment, just like his brothers were. He follows the sound of their laughter and soon finds the two eating with the beautiful women at a banquet. He then joins them when he soon realizes something very strange, because when trying to grab a strawberry quickly, his eyes see the reality showing a disgusting plate. Soon he realizes that his brothers and he are hallucinating from eating the golden apples. Apparently, the beautiful women are witches, and suspecting this, Espen pretends to eat another apple offered by the witch to keep him in the illusion. He soon manages to break free from the spell's effect and immediately sees the disgusting reality, rotten dishes, and horrendous witches in place of the beautiful women from before. He does his best to stay calm so as not to show that he can see the reality, while his brothers, still under the effect of the enchanted apples, are happy and laughing with the witches at their disgusting banquet. Espen then pretends to say that he would like to go out with his brothers to explore what he says is his new home forever in order to deceive the witches. He manages to lead them away from the witches and out of their sight. He slaps his brothers, who begin to return to normal and see the horrible reality. Suddenly, a witch appears behind them and they run desperately to get away from there. The witches pursue them, but they manage to escape just in time before the passage closes. The two brothers are grateful to Espen and now believe him. Espen informs them about the mountain troll. He says that no one can see the mountain troll because he only comes out at night, and the sunlight turns him to stone. They continue their journey to find the magical sword to save the princess, while she is still in the creature's cave, which scares her when he brings her food that is, however, in an inappropriate way for a human to eat. But as she is very hungry, Kristen finds herself forced to eat or she would starve. Back with the brothers, Per feels tired and hungry, then sees a bar and decides to eat something there before they continue. With no choice, the other two follow him. Coincidentally, Prince Frederick and his guards are also eating there. One of the guards sees Espen and his brothers, so he immediately informs the prince. While Espen talks about the magical map, the prince hears their conversation, knowing that the map will lead to the princess. Prince Frederick immediately speaks to Espen and asks about the map, offering him and his brothers a large sum of money that could help them rebuild their house. But Espen does not want to hand the map over to Frederick, knowing that he doesn't have good intentions for the princess. Out of control, the prince tries to force Espen to give him the map, but Espen throws a plate of hot soup in his face, causing the guards to attack him and his brothers. But his brother immediately fights back against the guards, and a brawl breaks out inside the bar. In the midst of the chaos, the prince tries to hit Espen with his sword, but he dodges very well. The waitress tries to help and throws a rolling pin to Espen to protect himself from the prince. After a few moments, the prince corners Espen, but inadvertently helps one of his brothers get rid of a soldier. Eventually, Frederick corners Espen again, but irritates a big man who was eating at the table. The big guy then throws Frederick against the wall, allowing Espen and his brothers to escape into the forest. Meanwhile, as they run, the prince and his soldiers track their scent like dogs and continue to chase them. Shortly after, Espen and his brothers reach a cliff with no more path to run. The prince and his soldiers catch up with them, but instead of giving up, Espen and his brothers jump off the cliff and fall into the waters, allowing them to escape again. Now safe from their pursuers, Pal expresses his frustration to Espen for refusing to take the prince's money. Then, after a brief discussion about family conflicts, Pal asks for the map, and they continue their journey again. Along the way, Espen finds an animal skin and takes it. Meanwhile, the princess wakes up with the creature trying to touch her, but Kristen stabs it in the finger and tries to escape, but fails and is captured by the gigantic troll. Kristen, seeing that she only made the monster furious, tries to trick him, saying that she will only marry him according to the legend if she has an appropriate dress. The creature then puts her back in the cave and leaves. In the forest, Espen and his brothers arrive at a cloudy place that clouds their vision. However, Espen gets his foot stuck for a moment, causing him to lose sight of his brothers. Then the prince and his soldiers find his brothers and kidnap them. On the other side, Espen finds the swamp where the magical sword is hidden. He dives in, and several magical creatures guarding the sword try to stop him, but in the end, he manages to grab the sword and escape from them. Espen continues his journey and eventually finds his two brothers with the prince and the guards. Espen then gets the idea to use the animal skin he found earlier and tries to scare Frederick and his men, who even flee thinking that he is really a bear. However, the big soldier knocks him down, discovering that it is just Espen in the skin. They keep him captive along with his brothers, and the prince takes the magical sword. Frederick finally decides to take them all to the Mountain King's cave to use them as bait. At night, Frederick and his soldiers camp in the forest, while Espen and his brothers are tied to a tree. When at one point they start to hear the sound of heavy footsteps approaching, then they hear a terrible roar, and the prince and the soldiers flee desperately from there. Espen and his brothers are tied to the tree, so they desperately try to cut the rope using a small stone. Fortunately, they manage to cut it just in time, allowing them to escape just before the Mountain King can grab them. After that, the troll continues trying to catch someone until he finds the prince's guards, who try to fight back, while Frederick flees. Unfortunately, the Mountain King catches them. On the other side, the prince hides high in a tree, and his servant tries to hide with him, but as the troll has already sniffed them out, Frederick kicks his hands, making him fall from the tree and be caught by the monster. The troll discovers that Frederick was also in the tree and soon captures him as well. Finally, he finds Espen and his brothers and takes Per with him to his cave, where now Espen and Pal alone must save the princess and their brother Per. Espen begins to lament, saying that everything that happened is his fault, but Pal supports him, saying that he believes he is capable of saving them. So later, they try to find something that might be useful to them. Fortunately, Espen manages to find the magical sword again. After that, they continue their journey to find the hideout of the Mountain King, where soon Espen and Pal arrive at a large cave. Inside, they find several human bones showing that it is a dangerous place. Further ahead, they find Per's shoe, which confirms that they must indeed be in the cave of the trolls. Espen ties a rope that will guide them back to the exit. They continue searching through the corridors when Espen almost falls into a hole leading to a smaller cave where the princess, Frederick, and Per are trapped. They throw a rope to pull them out one by one, but during the process, they suddenly hear the sound of the troll as if it is coming back. But soon they all manage to get out of the cave and continue on to exit the mountain. However, upon reaching the exit, they find the gigantic troll sleeping, blocking the way. They then try to pass carefully without being noticed by the monster, trying not to wake him, but the useless prince accidentally ends up bumping into the monster's tail, which immediately wakes up furious upon seeing them. They then run immediately for the exit with the Mountain King furiously pursuing them. They manage to escape the corridor, but find a cliff that prevents them from continuing to run. Seeing that the sun was about to rise, Kristen suggests climbing higher up the mountain so the sun will reach them faster. Then, with no option left, they continue climbing, doing their best to scale quickly while the troll reaches where they were, and, sniffing them out, begins to climb to catch them. On the way up, Frederick tries to hide, knowing that the troll would ignore his scent to continue pursuing the princess, and he passes unnoticed by the monster that closely follows Espen and the others. They finally manage to reach the mountaintop, where there is nowhere left to run. The Mountain King soon arrives, leaving Espen with no option but to fight. He cuts the Mountain King with the sword, which further enrages the monster. In response, the giant hits him with his hand, launching him away, and with that, the sword falls off the cliff. Pal tries to help his brother by throwing a rock at the monster, but he also receives the same blow, fainting in the process. Espen recovers from the injury and has a plan to defeat the Mountain King. He shouts, asking the princess to distract him, and the princess does so while Espen looks for something in his bag, in which he soon finds the old mirror he found on the way before. He then raises it as high as he can and redirects the sunlight rising to hit the troll's face. This makes him stop the attack against Princess Kristen and Espen's brothers. Then, as the sunlight bathes the landscape more and more, the monster gradually turns to stone, almost managing to strike Princess Kristen and Espen's brothers, but fortunately, he turns to stone in time. Kristen then takes it upon herself to completely destroy the stone monster, and with the mission accomplished, Espen, his two brothers, and the princess begin their journey back to the kingdom. Meanwhile, Prince Frederick is also returning to the kingdom when he encounters the same old woman that Espen met before. He asks her for directions to the kingdom, and the old woman shrewdly directs him to the witch's den. Meanwhile, the princess returns to the kingdom and reunites with her parents. The king offers Espen half the kingdom, but he refuses to accept. Instead, He only asks for enough money to rebuild his house and farm. The king then agrees to his request and also says that he will allow the princess to marry whoever she wants. After that, Espen and his two brothers walk back to their home, which is now just ashes, and there they reunite with their father, who happily welcomes them back. Their father is informed that it was Espen who saved the princess, which makes him very proud of him. The movie ends with a scene set a few days later, where Espen and his brothers are finishing the reconstruction of their home when Princess Kristen visits Espen, and together they mount and set off on their new life.